All right, so with circles comes these two formulas that I have written on the screen right now. The one on the left, x squared plus y squared equals r squared, is when the center of your circle is located at the origin. So if it's right in the middle, that is the first equation. The second equation is if you have shifted it left or right, or up or down. So the h will tell you if it shifts it to the left or to the right. The k will tell you if it shifts it up or down. What do you think r stands for? The radius. Good. And in a circle, if you remember, if you have the center, you go out a certain radius, and then if you swing it around, it would make your circle, just like on a compass and whatnot. Okay? So this one is for when the center is at the origin. So the center would be at the ordered pair of 0, 0. And the radius would be r. The second one again is when it's been shifted. So your center is at h and k. And the radius is still r. Okay. Now, what you're going to be given is you're going to have 3 parts today. First part is going to ask you to graph the circle, identify the radius. Second part is going to give you a radius and write the equation. And the third part is going to give you an ordered pair and write the equation. Okay? So, part 1. What you're going to be given is you're going to be given an equation like x squared plus y squared equals 16. So, has this been shifted, or is the center at the origin? At the origin. So the only thing I need you to really find for me is what's the radius. Now, what you don't want to do is the radius is r squared, or in the formula it's r squared, so we're not squaring 16. To get the radius, we would square root 16. So what's the square root of 16? 4. So if it's that case where r squared would equal to 16, then in order to get rid of it, you'd square root it. Now also, just to remind you, in that particular problem, remember I have made sure you guys know that when you square root to get rid of it in an equation, you should always have plus or minus, right? However, the reason why I only write the plus here is because it is a distance, and distances can't be negative. However, we are going to go in all directions with it. It's just 4 is the radius because it's a distance. Okay? So now, as far as graphing it goes. I have a center at 0, 0. And then how do you think I draw 4 for a radius? I go 4 in all directions, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And I try to make it as evenly spaced as possible. Because as you try as best as you can, are your circles going to be perfect? No, you're going to try your best though. Okay, so what I do to make it try to look my best is that I will try to elongate these points just a little bit and then try to curve them in there. Curve them in there. Curve them in there. Curve them in there. Okay, so I try my best to get it look to be like a circle. A lot of times what I've seen people do in the past, it doesn't look like a circle. It looks more like a diamond almost because they get it too sharp on the points. So just do your best with that. Biggest thing again is that you're going to have a radius. You're going to label the radius, so you're going to identify it. And then try to do your best to make your circle. Okay? Now, the only catch for the first part, besides this is the first part. This is what you're going to be doing. But there is going to be one problem for sure that's going to try to trick you. The problem will have it be like this. 2x squared plus 2y squared equals 128. Now, when you look at the two formulas that I gave you, was there ever anything, did I ever put a number or a letter in front of the x squared or the y squared? No, I did not. So in order to get rid of that, what do you have to do? Divide everything by 2. Right. If I divide this by 2, and that by 2, I get x squared plus y squared equals 64. Now in order to help me out, what's the radius? 8. How'd you get 8? The square root of 64. So then when I go to draw my picture, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what am I going to do with my stuff? Try to connect them, right? Not straightly, but with a arcing motion to make it look as circular as possible. How'd we do? Right? It's a lot harder when the radius gets bigger. That's the one thing that I will tell you that. Okay? So what do you think about the first part?
I think I have 8.
Okay? And you probably will. As long as they're not scrambled. All right. Next part. Jazz, would you give me a number? 4. On the second part, it's going to give you r equals 4. And it wants you to write the equation. And here's the directions. Write the standard form of an equation of a circle with a given radius and whose center is the origin. So which formula do I use? Do I use the one that just says x squared and y squared, or do I use the one that says x minus h and y minus k? X squared plus y squared equals r squared. And what's the r? Jazz told us it was 4. So 4 squared is 16. And done. Okay? Now, where it might get a little tricky, instead of giving you a whole number like that, it might actually give you something like this too, where it says r equals 3 root 5. So it gives you that broke down. Again, still going through the origin. So I'm still using x squared plus y squared. But it's when you square it that gets a little scary. When you square 3 root 5, you square the outside number. So what's 3 squared? 9. And then you square the root number. What's the square root of 5 squared? 20. The square root of 25, but what's the square root of 25? 5. And 9 times 5 becomes 45. So that would be my answer for the second one. Again, when you're squaring a root like that, you square the outside number, and then you square the inside number, simplify it, and then multiply the two pieces together. Okay, does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, that's the second part. Third part, and final part, we'll say, write the standard form of the equation of the circle that passes through the given point and whose center is the origin. So this is a little bit trickier, a little more work for these three. Okay, this one is a little bit different. Michaela, would you give me an ordered pair? No. I'll give you the 4. 4, 2. Okay? Now, the trick is that we want to write the circle that goes through that has the origin as the center, but goes through that ordered pair. So yes, I'm still going to use x squared plus y squared equals r squared, but it's the figuring out the r that's going to be a little more work for you than the first ones. If it goes through the order pair of 4, 2, and has a center of 0, 0, you do not need to draw the picture, but I'm going to give you kind of a visual representation of what's going on here. If I have this little grid, and if I have 0, 0 here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2 here, if that's going through it, that means that this would be what we call a radius. How do you find the missing, how do you find the distance between 2 points? I could use 2 different things. One of the things that I could do is I could make, and I'll put it in red so you see it. Do you see this if I were to go to the right 4 and up 2? What kind of mathematical shape did I just make? And more specifically, yes, a right triangle where I have 4 and I have 2. So what am I missing? I'm missing one side of a right triangle. In order to do that, we use the Pythagorean Theorem. Huh?
Mr. Curtis calls it the Pythagorean Theorem.
Okay, anyway. So 4 squared plus 2 squared equals, I'm going to call it r squared right away instead of c squared like we normally would in the Pythagorean Theorem. But we might as well call it the r because that's what it is. Now watch the thing that's really cool that helps you out. What's 4 squared? 16. What's 2 squared? What's 16 plus 4? 20 equals r squared. Now here's what you don't want to do. Think about this for a second. Isn't r squared in the formula? Doesn't it say x squared plus y squared equals r squared? R squared is 20. Do not square root this to get 2 root 5 and then have to go back and square it to get right back to 20. So use the 20. X squared plus y squared equals 20. That is an option for you. The other option for you would be to use the distance formula, where it's the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Do you want me to even show you that? What do you think about this? Does that make it pretty simple? This is the third part and final part on your worksheet. Would you like me to do another one? Okay. All right, so here's your worksheet.